everyone. Happy Monday. We've got a great show for you. We're going to talk about, is there such a thing as an AI developer? Do they need an AI PC? You know, Microsoft seems to think so, but we'll find out. We've got NIST weighing in on AIs, and then our friends at CloudBees have acquired some old friends of theirs. We're going to talk about all that and more. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi, everyone. Alan Schimmel here for Techstrong Gang. We've got a power-packed Monday show full of some great news and opinion and analysis. Couldn't do it, of course, though, without some of our fantastic gang members. And let me introduce you to this edition's version of the Techstrong Gang. First of all, joining us out west, he's fresh off his return from Las Vegas blackout engagement. He didn't play the Sphere or anything, but he was in Las Vegas for...
That was the dead last week, the last few engagements.
That was it. We missed it, too. We came home too early. But it's our roving editor extraordinaire, John Swartz. Hey, John, welcome.
Hey, Alan, it was great seeing you last week.
Great seeing you as well, my friend. Yeah. We'll talk more about Black Hat in a moment, but let's introduce the rest of our gang. Joining us from her perch in the, I assume you're home.
I am home.
Our open source developer, testing expert, board member, Tracy Ragan. Hey, Tracy. Oh, I should mention CEO and founder of Deploy Hub. Hey, Tracy.
Hey, Ellen. Hope you guys had a great time at Black Hat last week.
We did. It was good to see a lot of the old gang. And then now joining us from Alabama, I assume he's home. He's an expert on cloud. Yeah, you know him from DevOps and AI now as well. I think he has a new book that just came out too, I saw. It's my good friend, John Willis. Hey, John.
Hey, Alan, what's going on?
There was a new book, a follow-on to Deming, no?
Yeah, the original Deming book, I had to cut out about 15 stories, going through all the editors and all. And I decided to take those stories and put them in a supplemental book or compendium, called Profound Stories. So yeah, we just... that just came out like about a week ago. So, yeah.
Very cool.
I think we call that the director's cut. Is that right?
No, this is a full-on second on. This is a multi-CD case, Blu-ray.
That's right.
Anyway, chiming in here on my left, our editor-in-chief, our chief content officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, welcome.
Welcome home.
It's good to be home. I got home yet last night, and I'm happy to be home at least for a couple of days. I'm on the road again this week, so we'll do what we have to do. But anyway, before we jump into the blocks that we had in there, I mentioned John and I spoke a little bit. I'm fresh home from Las Vegas and Black Hat, and just a couple of observations there. As I mentioned, it's good to see, I'm in security 28 years, and doing the interviews and walking the floor is one thing, but going to some of the parties and seeing folks you haven't seen in a while or catching up, I saw so many good friends, and it was so good to see them. It was almost worth hanging out in 115-degree heat and getting slowly roasted. If I was on a spit or something, it would have been better. But it was hot out there. I don't know how people live there full time.
Cooked unevenly? Is that the problem?
Well, I was baking from the inside out, it seemed. But that being said, a couple of observations. I heard tell, and John, you and I spoke about it, but then I checked with one of the people I had interviewed who had insight, from the Black Hat folks themselves. There was somewhere between 17 and 19,000 people there.
Right. Right.
Right, John? Is that what you heard as well?
Yeah. So when I checked in, I was talking to an organizer who was kind of walking me around, and she said it was about 17,000.
Yeah. Now, I thought last year was like 40,000, and maybe I wouldn't be the only one who's getting older and exaggerates numbers, but I'm not running for anything. But that being said, I thought it was as big as RSA. Now, RSA clearly is over 40,000 people. So it would seem to me that RSA is still twice the size of Black Hat.
Yeah, I think it's significantly larger. It's interesting though because those two shows are almost talked about interchangeably, right? And one almost Black Hat's almost become an extension or vice versa. And before, as we talked about this on the last time when we were in Vegas, it was more of the Black Hat DevCon combination. Now this is clearly like a marketing show.
Right. Interestingly, John, I was reading an article on Politico this morning. They had some fundraiser out at DEF CON. But DEF CON is at the Las Vegas Convention Center, the big house.
Wow.
So could it be that DEF CON is actually bigger than Black Hat now?
Maybe that's why 17,000 were at Black Hat and the number's not as large as you thought it would be because there is like a bifurcation between the two shows, it seems. Before we had folks going to both events. Now perhaps maybe we have another set of people or
who come in just for DevCon.
Go. Yeah, so those exactly.
I will tell you the conversation in my house goes something like this. Honey, want to go to Vegas in August? No. Next subject.
Yeah, it is. I got to tell you, it is unbearably hot, but it's a dry heat. Anyway, John, I don't know. I don't want to do a whole deep dive here, but
one thing I was going to mention to you all is right before I left, I met with Dave DeWalt at Night Dragon. And one of the things I wanted to ask him about, and again, we talked about this already, was this kind of debate or this obsession with AI for the second straight year and whether it's a friend or a foe of the folks, especially in security. And he was of the opinion that Gen AI, which is obviously it's revolutionary versus the kind of evolutionary path of security, Gen AI has like a 2-year head start on defense. So that was a major theme that kept coming up over and over again. But again, that gap seems to be shortening. So we will talk about AI development and the proliferation of it, which will be coming soon, I think. But anyway, that was something I kept coming across.
I think that was a theme. I think another theme I heard from numerous people was, geez, there's a lot of companies here I never heard of. But in terms of what they sell, what they've developed, what they're advocating, it wasn't any revolutionary things. It was, very evolutionary, and some may say not very exciting at all.
Features of a bigger thing.
One thing I was going to also mention that I think was actually very encouraging is I ran across a number of companies or startups that were co-founded by women, and one of them in particular, I think Mitch had talked to her. She was inspired by science fiction and science fiction writing and literature, so that was her inspiration for her company. But there were quite a few. It wasn't as predominantly male as I had feared or dreaded before. So it was kind of more of a diversity.
Look, in that regard, the industry's changed. It is a lot better. Anyway, though, it was a great Black Hat. DEF CON was also fantastic from what I hear from people who were there. And now it's on to the next conferences, the next in the conference season, though August it gets slower. Anyway, let's jump into our first topic today, and that I hinted at it in the opening, the rise of the AI developer. First of all, is this just a marketing term? Is there such a thing? Does the world need an AI developer? Does the AI developer have his trusty AI PC, and that when he presses the button, he turns into He-Man or She-Ra or something? What is this about? John, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a reality, right? And, and I think, Microsoft is trying to drive this. And I think Microsoft, if you look at what Microsoft has been doing for, starting with Azure DevOps, Visual Studio, CodeSpace, like all these different tooling, probably in GitHub, right? Like they've been like preparing for this, and then the investment in OpenAI. So they've been eating their own dog food. And, that's how they've been developing software. Sasha Rosenblum, she did a presentation a few years ago when she was on Azure DevOps team. And, it's not fake. They're building their software with the tools they're promoting. So, I don't know currently how they're using sort of Copilot and Copilot Workspace and all these different tools to develop, but I assume they're following the same path. So, I think it's reality. And again, I think, what's really interesting is that Google and Facebook or Meta have been doing this for forever. They don't have the sort of the tools in a commercial or sort of a way that Microsoft can promote them, right? So in a lot of ways, I think Google, if you go back to how Google built the original Kubernetes as the Borg, and talking to people at Meta, I mean, it's all push button at Meta, including ads, which they've been doing AI extensively for many years, right? And so all that stuff's push button. How you get a model, how do you train a model, how do you how you run PyTorch. So I think it's a reality. I just think Microsoft's, in the right position at the right time to drive this narrative, and they've got the available tools. I use some of the Google tools, but I've switched over to basically all the Microsoft tools. The code spaces and VM Studio. I mean, you just can't get around AI development without really sort of using those tools. So
that's powerful, John, to hear you say that.
So, Tracy, let me ask you this question, though. Will not every developer become an AI developer? And is this kind of, maybe an exercise in Microsoft marketing? Who, to John's point, is a house that developers built, and I get all that. But at what point are you no longer a developer if you're not using AI?
Well, we're still going to have API developers. We're going to still have, SQL developers. We're going to still have backend developers. And we'll have people who are specializing in AI, because that's just kind of how we have always siloed our skills. So we will have AI developers. And I don't really see AI, though, as, I always see AI as a tool. It's not a product. And we've had these conversations before, and I think it deserves more conversation. Is AI a product, or is it a feature, or is it just a tool? But I want to say this on this topic of where we see Apple going, where we see, Microsoft going, Google. I almost feel like they're chasing OpenAI. If Alan always tells us, if you're not in the top 3, then get out of the, get out of the barn. And I feel like they're all chasing that top 3. And what's going to get them there is developer adoption. So the sexier you can make this, the more fun it is, the more you're going to bring developers to your party. So if we're at the top 3, those top 3 have to fight. And anybody playing in this space right now, they have to fight for the hearts and minds of those potential new AI developers. AI PCs, as you kind of mentioned before we started the show, having a PC with NPUs on it, all that sounds really fun and sexy. And it's going to get developers interested in playing in AI.
So, John Willis, if there is such a thing as an AI developer, I mean, we see new drops of models almost all the time now. I think OpenAI just dropped one last week. And how does a developer really think about which model to use? What are you tracking? And, what leaps out at you?
Yeah, I think I want to step back a little bit, because there is this idea of the AI developer. It's sort of a little bit of a misnomer, because we go back to things we've talked in the past. There's sort of the inference and training, or training and inference, if you want to put them in order, right? So when we talk about an AI developer, in the purest sense, it's people who build models. There's going to be less of them, but I think when we say AI developer, we're actually, and I think what Microsoft's saying is the AI developer is going to use all the AI tools available to them, and so what you're going to have, all the different types of development paradigms are going to be enhanced by AI tools. So I don't know that they're sort of focusing on, okay, now we're going to have people that build, because very few people build AI models, especially in a general purpose use scenario, right? More
exactly.
People,
in the same way, not everybody builds a database.
That's right. But like everybody uses a database. So I think when they say AI developer, what they're really saying, there's a new way to develop everything. And it is that you're going to use things like Copilot. You're going to use these tools. In fact, the whole, if you've been following the whole open Devon scenario about automated dev tools, or sort of agentic system software engineering tooling, right? Like that's the next wave of not just help you write code, but help you close issues on GitHub. So I think, all of this is what Microsoft is driving. As far as what you choose for your tools, it's funny that that OpenAI just dropped another snapshot, right? It was what was it? It was 8.6. So it was basically last week, and it didn't seem like much because it still was October. The sort of snapshot of the data was still October, so people kind of missed it. But what happened was it was like twice the size of sort of tokens. It was basically half the price, and then it scored on some of the benchmarks incredibly well, right? Like there's sort of a zero val benchmark, and if you look at it, it's just like overall 2 points higher than the sort of the next on the list, which I think was Anthropic's. But what's interesting, it forced me to go in and do something I've been wanting to do for quite a while, is look at a little deeper the benchmarks and see which models are leading in which categories. Because the benchmarks have these different, like there's a coding category, right? And GPT, OpenAI wins there. Multitasking things, GPT wins. Again, based on sort of a smaller set of vowels, but this one seems to be the one most people go to. But then things like a deductive logic, Anthropic wins, basically. So it's just funny. You can start looking at some of and then like on math, like if that's something you like need to do outside of a calculator, Llama wins. So I think the benchmarks are telling us some information. So I think to answer your question, I think we're going to learn more and more as these models drop. And some are going to be better at other things. And I've instinctively found that certain things I do go to, I go to Claude for this. And it's sort of like I have a feel, but I didn't know why. Like certain things that I want to do, I'll use Claude. Otherwise, I'll use, GPT-4o or Omni. And so I think as the benchmarks and this race that seems like it's sort of crazy is actually going to give us more information. And as a developer, I think we're going to have more ability to choose. And I think like the other thing you have to be aware is the small language models, right? The Phi 3, the Mistral, right? So I don't think the game is over in terms of anybody.
I think what we're seeing is AI Darwinism in a petri dish, right?
Totally.
As time goes on here, each of these models is going to digress from, let's say, a common base and have specialization. We see it in the cloud providers too, right? There are things Google does well. There are things Microsoft Azure does well. And there's a lot of things AWS does well. You're going to see that, but it's still early in that game. To me, the question is it the AI developer versus the AI as developer?
Maybe. I guess, what I'm trying to figure out and try to keep the answer a little short, John, if you don't mind, but
sorry,
are people switching out LLMs from day to day, week to week, month to month, or do I commit for a year and so I'm kind of locked into that one project?
I don't think, excuse me, John, I don't think it's even the LLM. I think it's the whole AI.
Either way, but on this example, we're talking about things are being updated every other week and it's hard to keep track.
No, I mean, I think there's companies that probably the biggest thing you're seeing in enterprises is they're trying to lock in with the big three, right? And so like I was at a internal hackathon of a company last week, right? They're all Google. Now, whether that's the right decision or not, that's a whole nother, but they built their cloud infrastructure on it. Now they're building an AI infrastructure. So they go with Google and Vertex, right? Other ones, majority of the large enterprises are already banking on Amazon. And, but to your question about the model, I think they're interchangeable. So the point is, if I go with Vertex, I can use any model and I can swap them out just by putting a parameter change, right? If I go Amazon, they all support all the models. There's sort of the model selection is pretty much interchangeable via a parameter. I mean, there's some other sort of things you have to do in terms of orchestration and all, but in general, the models themselves are reasonably compatible for the code you write.
If you can serve, if I'm a Visual Studio developer and you can serve the tools to me at that point, I'm going to adopt a lot faster and I'm going to be more in love with you. And so I believe that Microsoft, while that list that you gave us showed us who was on top now, If Microsoft could make the adoption easier and serve it right to the developer, they're going to win.
Well, I got to add it there because I can use VS Studio and all that work with really any tool. I can use Google Vertex. I can use, so again, don't conflate the tools with the engines, if you will, because they're going to win the sort of I agree with you on, they're going to win the desktop. They're going to win your environment. They're going to win, but I don't know that necessarily equates to like OpenAI wins or the Azure AI wins.
Guys, we're going to take a break. We have to. Someone's got to pay for this. You're watching Techstrong Gang. We're going to be right back.
All right, folks, we're back and we're going to be talking about, well, this, for lack of a better phrase at the moment, testing framework that NIST has put out there. It's version 1.0. John Willis has taken a look at it. John, what is the driver behind this? Why is NIST weighing in now on this subject? And what is the state of AI model testing as you know it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, right? I've sort of publicly, ragged on NIST, if you will, in the sense that, I think OWASP has done, I've said this many times, OWASP seems to have been, up until now, seem to have done a better job on AI. Some of the early NIST stuff, within the last year, there's been more like, what are the harmful things you can do with Google? Like, it didn't see a whole lot of difference between what they were expressing. But, there was the executive order, Biden's executive order on AI, late last year, and I think what I found is NIST has just been working really hard at getting it right, and I think this the dioptra, I think it's called. I don't know. I'm not good at pronouncing, but we can put a link to it. But it is a testing framework, and I think it's pretty interesting. The only thing I'll say right now is you crawl, walk, run. NIST is crawling, walk, run, which again is a good sign. The crawl is they're really doing model building testing. And as I said earlier, I think the real risks are in the inference side, not the sort of the modeling and then the training. And so, but that just tells me that they're on the path, right? I think this is a good first start. But the other thing that I noticed when I was doing the research on it, that they dropped a whole bunch of new papers that are really interesting, and that puts them. Those aren't tools that are available. And this dioptra is a complete open tool. It expresses that you get help from the government, free help, and I haven't installed it, but I went through the code, I looked at it, and it looks pretty real. But the papers are more interesting because that sort of puts them in line with these sort of AI papers. Literally just dropped in July. There was like 5 of them that dropped, and I can give you a link to those. But that seems to put them on par with, from my perspective, which is, sort of just me, but it puts them on par with OWASP in terms of like what OWASP has been saying for about the last year or so.
So to me, I'm sorry, go ahead, Trace.
I was surprised to see NIST have a product as opposed to just a document on standards. That's what surprised me about it.
It's not
good. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of work. Yeah, I think you're right. But maybe that was like, I was starting to say they weren't doing their homework, or they were just sort of spitting out stuff that just seemed, not relevant. But maybe they were, buckling down and putting something together that
Maybe one of those other 3-letter agencies slipped something under the door for him.
Hey, you got to take a look. Well, I will tell you though, to me, this bleeds into our first block. It's a continuation of, people who
Can I
use
go back?
AI.
I'm sorry, Alan.
No,
Can I mention? Yeah, it's kind of an extension of what we were just talking about in AI development. Can I just kind of like broaden it or step back and look at it from a Wall Street point of view? And I think it's Daniel at the Churn Group has talked about this and written about it. Is like this whole kind of concept about the speed of AI's proliferation, especially when it comes in terms of development, is going to take months and years, not days and weeks. We have this kind of ultra speed viewpoint of AI, but there's also a claim in a Goldman Sachs note recently that suggests there are zero killer Gen AI applications, which seems wrong because we already have these use cases for advertising, search, content creation, video development, rendering, private models that help streamline financial services or personalize healthcare. They're moving fairly quickly. I just want to interject that idea or notion that it is actually expanding and moving in some sort of way, and it's not just. This emphasis shouldn't just be on a handful of companies. I just want to throw that out.
I agree. And I think, putting these two blocks together, what we're witnessing is history in real time, right? We're looking at a day-by-day, day-to-day view of something that's going to stretch out over the next 5 to 10 years. And it can't happen soon enough for some of us, right? John lives this every, significant portion of every hour of every day. And so when you look at it day to day, the paint's not dry yet. But when we look at it, and that may get some frustrated, especially people who are making big bets money-wise on this, right? Going to the Wall Street thing. But you can't have that day-to-day view of this. You've got to look at this as just a reweaving of our whole platform, a new paradigm, dare I say.
There's like
happen in a day.
Right. There's like a 3-step network process or effect. The first wave are servers, memory, network, storage. Second wave, probably independent software vendors, hyperscalers. And the third wave is then we get applying AI to new and improved experiences from retail to financial.
I think it's a misnomer, though, to say, I think what's happening is I've been going to a lot of internal hackathons of companies, and they're building stuff. They're just not talking about it.
Yeah.
Right. So there's real stuff being built. And in fact, JP Morgan is talking about their stuff, and they're doing some real stuff. So this misnomer that AI is sort of stalled, or I think what we're seeing is the sort of commercial aspect. What we're not seeing is a lot of companies that are doing incredible stuff are not basically publicly disclosing that they're doing it. But
it's also the nature, John. These things, day to day to day, there's progress made every day. Now, unless you're doing time-lapse photography of AI, you may not see that progress because you're just, the watch pot never boils. But of course there is. And then, at some point you're going to look at it retrospectively and say, wow, look where we were a year or two ago to compare today. It's literally night and day. So I think that's what we're dealing with.
Let me come back to that first question at the top and maybe provide a little more context behind it. But John Willis, one of the things I hear all the time from folks is they're like, well, I don't know how well this model is going to perform. I don't know how well it's going to cost. And there isn't a lot of testing tools up front, they say. So they're kind of all in on a proposition. And then they get, concerned that the next thing's going to come along and outdo the first thing. So what do we need for testing in the AI space?
We have it. It's another flavor of observability, right? Unfortunately, they use an overloaded term. And I've said this a couple of times, that most people think observability is like, CPU performance, the logs, the sort of the Dynatrace and honeycombs. But there is a form of observability that's basically been around for a while called evaluations. And that space is like lightning speed right now. And it's using sort of LLMs to sort of look for these things like guidance and relevance and QA correctness and hallucinations. And so I think a lot of people don't understand that part of your stack of AI has to, I've said this before, I've so loosely termed something called a LOMR stack, right? I'm not trying to become famous or anything, but you've said, it's language model orchestration, you have observability, which is these evaluation tools. You have RAG and you have model management. Now you have agentic processing, right? And that's sort of evolving to be the stack. So if you're not aware of the tooling that is available and how fast it's moving, and then the big people like, Vertex has a whole lot of guidance, model guidance and bottled sort of guardrails. Azure's had it for a while. So it's there. It's just a lot of people are moving so fast. They're like, I'll get to that later. And by the way, that's the way DevOps went, right? We didn't really start playing with DevSecOps in anger until about 5 years into DevOps, right? So.
Absolutely. Hey, we're going to take a break. I'm AI'd out. Let's talk about something else. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
All right. Last week, in all the noise that was happening around Black Hat and AI, something may have missed your attention. CloudBees acquired Launchable. And I know you talk to these guys all the time, but what is your sense of what is going with CloudBees these days? Where does Launchable fit in your mind? And kind of, what's the backstory here?
Okay. Well, so keep in mind, I have not spoken to Sasha or KK or Harpreet. KK, Harpreet being the co-founders of Launchable, both former CloudBees people, and Sasha Labouré being one of the co-founders over at CloudBees. I haven't spoken to them since this news went public. But first of all, congratulations. Congratulations to CloudBees. Congratulations to the folks at Launchable. For those who aren't familiar, Launchable was a company started by Kosuke Kasuawi. I always mispronounce it, but I call him KK. KK, for those who may not know, is the founder of Jenkins. And he was the CTO and then chief scientist at CloudBees, when CloudBees was primarily a Jenkins company for many, many years. Harpreet Singh was also at CloudBees. He ran product there for a long time. Both bright guys. They left CloudBees, as CloudBees was kind of moving away from being the Jenkins company, and started Launchable because they felt that testing and intelligent testing and efficient testing was the biggest bottleneck that we face in this CI/CD world. And they, not to bring up this word again, but they built a lot of AI into their automated and intelligent testing.
You cannot escape it.
No, you can't. Well, now, let's be real. We're DevOps.com. Okay, and we follow this pretty closely. CloudBees is a kind of a dogfight along with some of the other, major DevOps platform players like JFrog and GitLab and GitHub and Harness and others. And I'm glad to see them reaching out and bringing Harpreet and KK back into the fold, as well as bringing Launchable and its AI-powered testing, intelligent testing to the platform. Here's what I think we need to see. Is Launchable going to be integrated? CloudBees came out with a new platform that was independent of Jenkins maybe a year ago now, less than a year. Are they going to integrate Launchable into this? Is it become part, a real part of it, or does it stay as a standalone thing? And then more importantly, sometimes you do acquisitions like this for the people. You've got two bright people coming back into CloudBees. Is KKD, on his way back to being CTO? Maybe. Is Harpreet on his way to, being a broader vision of product because he has a good view of the CI/CD product space? Maybe. If they do that, do other people drop out? Maybe. We'll have to see, but I am thrilled. I'm so happy for my CloudBees, all the bees, my friends there, and for KK and Harpreet and the Launchable folks.
We had a video.
I agree, Alan. Getting KK back, getting Kosuke back into CloudBees he was the heart of CloudBees. He is an amazing engineer.
He was the heart of
and
CloudBees, Tracy.
He is the heart.
Mike,
Yeah,
what were
and
you
he
gonna
needed
say?
to be back.
I'll just take that again from the top and we'll cut it.
Okay.
Well, we actually have an interview with Sasha on Techstrong.
Yes, we do.
Last week. And one of the things that I found intriguing that he was pointing to was the convergence of DevSecOps and finally quality assurance, and that all these things were starting to move in the same direction because of, I know I'm going to use the phrase AI, but John Willis, do you think, as you look at the way DevSecOps and quality assurance is evolving, is that there's a convergence finally going to happen?
Yeah, I think as Alan said, it's going to be sort of a little messy getting through to get there. Like I look at you look at the pre-gen AI tools, the harnesses and all those, and then there seemed to be a lot of noise that nobody was really sold that it actually did what it said it did, because you shouldn't ask me a question. I was going to stay silent on this second. But the dependency map, like it is so complicated, right? And Tracy knows way more about this than I do. But like I just, before we got to Gen AI, I was like, I don't buy it. I'm not buying sort of pre-Gen AI to solve these complexities. Now I'm like interested in hearing about it. But the problem right now is, every vendor that's classically been doing sort of nothing with AI or doing sort of ML ops version AI are now doing Gen AI versions. I don't know where you start. I think it seems a little messy right now.
I think it's an opportunity. Trace, should we try your internet connection again?
Maybe. I don't know. We probably will. We probably should try it. So my question for the whole thing is, bringing testing into CloudBees is going to be an interesting kind of journey for them.
Yeah.
Launchable, while I've looked at that solution, and I say it with true heart. I love KK, and I think he is a brilliant engineer, but they weren't sales reps. And bringing it into CloudBees may change that dynamic for Launchable, and that's what I'm eager to see if that happens for them, because they're not sales reps; they're engineers. And bringing it into an organization who already has an enterprise sales team will be interesting. Will the enterprise sales team push that product? That's yet to be seen. And I think because it's Kosuke, they will.
Fantastic.
Are we going to see more of these kinds of deals? I mean, we talked about the market.
Absolutely. Yes. You had me at hello there. I honestly think, look, between what happened on Wall Street last week and I'm glad the market came back a bunch, though it didn't come back all the way looking at my accounts. But all that being said, we're in a jittery phase. We're in the middle of an election cycle. There's, what's the Fed going to do? I think for even public companies in this space and in tech in general, it's shaky times out there. And when times get shaky, there's people who want to cash out, and there's people who want to bottom feed, and there's people who want to look at this as a great time to build. And so I think we're going to be entering a hyper consolidation phase over the next year, where you're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff, as well as some bigger companies that'll surprise you that, this is tech, right? The little fish get swallowed by the medium fish. The bigger fish get swallow the medium fish. The gigantic fish swallow the big fish. You're going to see a lot of it.
I think we have seen John Schwartz.
He came up there, right?
There must be, I think maybe in the last 2 weeks, I think I've seen stories from the financial press that basically says every company on the planet's for sale.
Yeah, that's right. Given the uncertainty, it seems like it. Given the uncertainty of the election, let's just put that out there. Probably it's going to be very close. A lot of the company, given the state of the market and given the state of the uncertainty, whether are we in a recession or are we not, debate over inflation, et cetera, the Fed, I think everyone's playing out multiple options. They all have plans A, B, and C, and I think anything could happen. I think there'll be a lot of consolidation. I also think there's this uncertainty, even going back to our first block, in terms of things like development, in terms of regulation. I would not diminish what happened between the DOJ and Google, because that's going to have an effect. Already is having an effect on Apple and how anyone else looks at AI development, whether not just in Europe, but in the US.
Well, I think if you're one of these tech giants, John, you got to be real careful about doing any acquisitions.
Absolutely. The FTC might be emboldened, probably is emboldened by what happened with DOJ, and the DOJ is going after Apple as well.
But you have the Chevron decision as a counterweight there, right? Say, are these agencies, do they really want to push it because if these companies take it to the Supreme Court, will the court tell them that the agency overstepped their bounds? So that
I wouldn't even overlook the FCC and the influence they're going to have in terms of disclosure.
But they're also an agency and subject to the Chevron decision.
So, and given the courts, exactly. So there are all these from every branch of government. These companies are slowly, they're political animals now. They have been for years, and they are hedging their bets.
Like that old Jewish folk saying, may you live in interesting times.
The Chinese Jews.
No, the Chinese Jews, right? Exactly.
Let me just ask this question though, and I'll ask it to you, and maybe Tracy can jump in. But do we not overlook all the integration that has to happen every time these companies get acquired? Everybody goes, "Yeah, this is great, rah rah," and then 6 months later, they're still stitching this stuff together.
6 months, 6 years later, sometimes they're still stitching. Look, I've done a lot of acquisitions in my day, for companies I helped. And you got to break a couple of eggs to make omelets, and not every integration works. And, the road to perdition is lined with good intention. So, sometimes they don't work.
Well, if Launchable did it right, they already did that integration.
Yeah, probably. And KK and Harpreet, knowing what they know about the innards of CloudBees, I would think, but that's just one. I think you're going to see a lot more.
Perhaps they built it to be acquired in the first place.
Could very well be. A lot of ex-Cisco people, they leave Cisco, start a company, and get brought back in 2 and 3 times. Anyway, hey, we're about out of time. I hope we got your Monday off to a great start here. It's a busy, busy week. I'm going to be on the road this week, but Mike, Mitch, and the rest of John, the rest of our gang members will be on. And we're here to give you that day-to-day. So until tomorrow, check out the rest of Techstrong TV there. We have a great lineup. Also, do check out, I believe our Black Hat interviews are now, that we streamed live while there, are also now available, and they'll be as part of the show or available on techstrong.tv. But until tomorrow, thanks for joining us here on Techstrong Gang. This is Alan Schimmel. We're out.
I'm Bonnie Schneider, sustainability contributor to the Techstrong Group. I'm excited to introduce you to a groundbreaking new initiative from Techstrong Research, the Sustainability Pulse Meter. The Pulse Meter offers valuable insights into how environmental responsibility factors into tech purchasing decisions for key players in the industry. Position your company as a leader in the industry and differentiate from your competitors with the Sustainability Pulse Meter, offered exclusively from Techstrong Research.